Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's really special.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm really excited to listen to that. And like, I want to throw in there too. Ted, you asked the question, what's going on with this virus, and what do we think? And I think it's so interesting because my partner is she's a nurse, and for me, it's been interesting to see from within the system how, like, if this was really that big of a problem, the healthcare system's not treating it like one. Like, it's really weird. Like, there's a lot of things are not matching up from like basic level, which is why we're having this conversation. At the end of the day, why did we create this talk show? We created this talk show so that while we're all stuck in wherever our respective bubbles, at least we can start having the conversation of how we can evolve, like how we can evolve also within health, but eventually we'll have conversations about tech, and we'll have conversations about relationships, we'll have conversation about permaculture. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can start to evolve, but I think first and foremost, something really basic is health, and redefining health is super important. So before we even get started, I definitely want to start us off with a meditation. I have this beautiful thing here. You guys ever seen this? It's kind of nice. We got a little upside down Buddha, like the upside down, what is that? The astrology, the tarot, astrology tarot, right? Upside down Buddha. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick little meditation, and I'm going to invite all of you watching, whether it's on Zoom or Facebook or YouTube, just imagine this tree right here, right? Just visualize, see this tree behind me? So imagine yourself as a tree. So go ahead and close your eyes and imagine yourself as a tree. And just visualize, what does that mean? What does it mean to have a trunk, to have leaves, to have roots? So as you breathe, you think about that as you breathe as well. What does that mean to breathe? When you breathe out, what happens? Are you creating oxygen? Are you creating carbon dioxide? What's happening within you? Whatever it is, notice that exchange that's happening within you as just like a tree. And maybe you might be noticing with every breath, maybe you're getting more rooted. Maybe you're noticing the roots. Maybe it's your physical roots, maybe it's your emotional, psychological roots, whatever it is, just visualize them going deep into the ground, extending out. Maybe they're connecting to mycelial networks underground. Maybe you're noticing all the animals that live underground, all around your roots. And as you think about below, you must think about above. So take your consciousness, your mind, also to your branches, to your leaves. Do you have fruits up there? Do you have flowers? Are there nests? What's up there? What kind of tree are you? And maybe come back to the core, come back to the center. What kind of tree are you? What's the thickness? What's the thinness? What is the texture? What's the design? What kind of tree are you? Are you supporting other plants and trees around you? Just breathe into that space. Breathe into what it feels like to be a tree. To make that connection. Maybe you extend your breath. Breathe a little bit more. Maybe you physically allow yourself to feel what it feels like to be a tree. Maybe take your hands up into the air or to the side like you have leaves. Or maybe you don't have any leaves at all. Maybe you want to stretch and move it around. Maybe you want to like move as a tree, and maybe from your core, you want to move. And as a tree, continue to breathe.
Meditation.
Allow yourself to be in that space through this whole experience, through this whole talk show, and the rest of the days, to have this relationship with the tree that's you and the tree that's everywhere. And with that, Slowly come back into the space, come back to your body, back into your human body, not your not your tree body, unless you want to be a tree for the rest of this, but that's cool too. Hey, listen, all tree lives matter. I think everybody, all tree lives matter. It all is important. And really, I want to thank you for everybody who's here. There's people from all over the world right now that are tuning into this, and I want to keep this in mind while we get this thing rolling. Is that this is a talk show. Like we're trying to do something crazy experimental right now. I don't know what we're doing. Charlie, do you know what we're doing? We don't know what we're doing, but we're doing a talk show, I think, right? And the whole idea is we start off really quickly to kind of give you guys an idea what Cosmic Lab is, Cosmic Labyrinth. What the heck is this crazy thing that we're doing? Right? And then we're going to kind of open it up also, to introducing our theme for today. And then we're going to start bringing on some guests. And for this particular show, we might have some special guests, which is kind of fun. And in the future too, who knows, we'll have art shows and we'll have other ways that we can kind of make this talk show something that's great for people online, an alternative, on a Friday night. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is really amazing that you guys, wherever you're at, you're helping us make this be possible. You're also helping us have the conversation. Charlie, if you could simplify, what would you say Cosmic Labyrinth is?
I think the Cosmic Labyrinth is the capturing the journey of our experience.
There you go.
Okay. Being able to experience and capture experience and then sharing that with everybody, but it's about looking very deep within and then around and being able to share everything that we see and beyond limitations, beyond kind of things that maybe multiple people experience, but because we didn't have an outlet to share, now we are given an opportunity to share what is really happening in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think also it's interesting because there's been like so much knowledge and information passed on through different cultures, different teachers, different lineages, right? Not just scientists, but science has been practiced in all kinds of different ways. So it's interesting when we have these conversations about science.
And also bringing in spirituality in science too, right?
Don't say that, dude. Don't say spirituality, dude. Then nobody's gonna listen to us. Like the moment you say spirituality, everybody goes like, "What the heck?" No, those guys, those hippies, those goddamn hippies.
But yeah, it's really important that we actually go all the way, everywhere, being able to branch to all the different modalities and hear the different stories from everybody.
Sure. I mean, I think that's where where we make progress. That's my opinion for progress. That's when we have these conversations. Also, it's also noticing, like, sometimes I think listening is important, right? Like we have 3 people today, right, that are going to come on, and maybe some more, of course, there'll be more. And when these people come on, when we listen to them and we actually listen to what their story is, what their mission is, what their purpose is, like maybe those connections might form connections inside of us for people we know, or maybe the ideas we've had, and who knows what we can conceive of when we listen.
And it's important to also know people in our community, right? People that we actually meet. It's not always people that we go online and we think that these people are great because they have such a huge following. But really, the people in our communities that we know, that we meet every day, who are really in the front line of this experience, they're the ones that we're going to get this authentic story, and that's what was really important about this Cosmic Labyrinth is, all of us know somebody that is doing something. And if we hear their authentic story, maybe we'll understand the more authentic story of the human experience.
Sure. And maybe you might gain a perspective that we didn't have before, and that might be really valuable. Or I mean, I think I can't help but notice that everybody is also in it for themselves. There's an element of all of us that we want to achieve, we want to do something, we want to accomplish something, there's something going on, right? And I think when we listen and we connect with people, we also might be able to do that. We might actually be able to succeed how we want to succeed too.
And hopefully we can inspire more people, right? From different generations, be able to understand kind of what we went through, and then be able to feel the connection that, hey, other people are going through this. Other people are asking questions. Other people are trying to go and, blindfolded, trying to figure out what the world has to offer, but, they just don't understand, So a lot of us can be able to share that experience, and but maybe we're not alone in this crazy cosmic labyrinth.
Oh, whoa. That's cool. Labyrinth. Remember the Labyrinth in what was that movie with the HBO one?
Oh, Westworld?
Westworld, the labyrinth in the brain, right? So
Yeah.
we're all there's
I
a
mean, we
labyrinth.
talk about that symbology, right?
There's a labyrinth going on, and right now we're kind of in it, all of us, as a civilization, almost, you know. So how are we going to navigate that labyrinth?
Well, we're exploring the internal labyrinth now, right? Because we're not able to be socially connected with other people, so we're not getting external input, right? So everything is now internally. We're at home. We're experiencing only ourselves, both the good and the bad, you know. And
One of my gurus in India, he said he's like right now is the time to everybody can become a saint, like everybody can become a guru, you know, because you can like sit home and you go within, and that's what the saints would have to go into the cave, or they'd have to dig a hole. Like in India, they dig holes and they go into the hole for like days upon weeks upon months, you know.
it's very much like the natives too. The Native Americans have these kivas that they go underground for like hours, and they're just chanting, and they're really going through really crazy spiritual kind of awareness when they're not able to see anything, you know, and really only whatever is internal, and that internal movie is what's the most important at that point.
Yep, big time. Charlie, really quickly before we have our first break, our first commercial break. That's kind of fun, man. It's kind of fun that we have like a talk show, but it's like, you know, like I've always wanted to have a talk show. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like a lot of talk shows never really breached any of the topics that we were mostly interested about, you know? We should be poking at every story and trying to figure out what's going on. But we should be able to also take in stories that are incredible, but see them as real, you know, reality. You know, when people say that they see things in our dreams, how do we not use that as evidence in our physical reality that it's part of our reality as well?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes the game more fun to play. I'll tell you that much. I'm gonna live a boring game. Dude, what's going on really quickly with Cosmic Lab? I think we should share, you know, this is, everybody's tuning in right now to this. This is Cosmic Labyrinth. It's a Friday Night Live. This is more adult. And so what's Cosmic Lab?
Cosmic Lab is more for the next generation. I believe that we don't have to wait till we're old and wise and almost dying to be teachers. I believe that anytime that we master any skills, we should become teachers, right? And so the old way of going to school and only learning like 4 or 5 topics for 12 years, rather than actually picking up skills from everybody around the world who are masters. You know, you can have musicians teaching, and everybody should be able to share. So if we're able to share this information sooner with our next generation, couldn't they be the next partners that we have in 10 years, a decade from now? Suddenly these kids are the ones who are helping us through whatever we're going through. And
what? Wait a second. Are you saying that the kids are our therapists?
Yeah, they could be, right? I mean, they're coming in kind of clean with less baggage than we have. And so a lot of times they'll say things and repeat to us things that like are so natural to them. And yet we like spent years trying to deprogram, saying, no, that's not the right way of thinking. That's the way my mom and dad used to think.
I'll tell you what, bro, when I listen to kids, they have some deep wisdom. And when you don't have to change your diapers, you download that wisdom a lot better. I would also say, I think, it's interesting to think about how like kids also, when we serve the children, when we have that be a part of whatever we do, it almost like brings us integrity to the space. And I like that. Like, since the past few weeks, we've been doing stuff with kids. It's been kind of cool because it's like, no, like it kind of grounding me too. Like, we're not going to talk about stupid stuff. We're not going to get distracted by dumb things. Like, we're doing stuff with children. This is not just doing another fun thing with adults. Like, and there's all these different things out there, Burning Man, and there's other things, right, that can be only focused on adult playfulness, but like kids also need to be reminded to be playful and curious. Curiosity is important for kids.
Yes, definitely right now too, because we're all kind of quarantined, so we get to really experience things that are beyond just the boundaries of what our current social education tells us we can teach our children.
Dude, have you had any conversation with young kids, they're like really unhappy? Like, all the kids I've talked to, the stuff they're saying is like deep. That's like deep stuff. Like, that's the stuff people go to a therapist and they talk about. They're like overtly telling us they're struggling, you know, and we really need to we really do a lot more. I in my belief, you know, about that.
Yeah, that plus nutrition, mental health, and education is very important. And I don't think we're looking at that very well. So I hope that we can have this conversation with the health theme that we're having this month, right? To really think about what does health represent, you know, besides just the body health, is a mental health component, an emotional health, and a spiritual health, right? Because the idea that like we have a job, we're gonna have a family, and that's the end of your life. No, that's the end of like a material life. But after that, what does your soul want? What does your soul look for? You know, and we could have this discussion too, because that's a different age that we kind of start recognizing that this is spiritual part of ourselves, right?
Yep, it's interesting too, and we might get some insight too. In Sikhism, there's a guru. One of the gurus, there was a series of gurus, and one of the gurus was a kid, a 7-year-old, and he actually died. No, this is kind of interesting segue. He actually died during, I think it was a measles. It was an outbreak in India. It was a big plague, and he ended up dying because he went to go volunteer and work with people. Like he refused to like be like locked up. He was like, I want to go and like be of service, you know, with the sick. And he was a 7-year-old and he died. Like, but he was like a 7-year-old guru. Anyways, and that was only like 300 years ago, 400 years ago. Okay, I want to segue. Before we do, I definitely want to acknowledge Charlie, the awesome work you do on this. You know, whatever's going on with this Cosmic Labyrinth and Cosmic Lab, what you do, what you bring to the table, being like a technology wizard, you know, but also being like open and creative and serving other people, like guiding people. Like, you know, you just did an astrology reading before this for 2 people. One of them is a nurse at UCSF, you know, and so you're like connecting with people in a way that's kind of like helping people in a space. It's like kind of you're bridging, you know, worlds. And so I really value that, bro. I think, thank you so much for, you know, also like, you know, sharing the space with me. Like, I'm honored.
Thank you, Indy.
Cool. All right. So wait, we need some like we need a musical.
Also, Indy, I love the way you're able to connect people, and I really love how, you know, all these shows is the people you connect, the people you touch, and it's great to be able to bring everybody together and be able to have a really deeper conversation about our roles here together as humans and how we can learn from each other and grow.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Segue. Somebody has to play music. We need to, Sid, you know, I was hoping my buddy Sid would come on and ask them, but we need, if anybody knows any musicians or anybody wants to be like a musical, you know, like on like Conan O'Brien, they have the music person, or like David Letterman had that one dude. What was his name? What? I can't remember his name.
Is it Charlie Tuna from the Roots? Right? That's in Conan.
Paul Schaefer.
Ah, yes, Paul Schaefer.
We're in his hometown right now.
What? Okay, and this is a perfect segue. Amanda, thank you for coming on. Oh my gosh, this is a little special little edition right here. Amanda, where are you?
So I'm in Thunder Bay, Canada, north of Toronto.
Who's that guru that's the guru sitting on the lap right there? Who's the guru right there?
Is it red? Which
no,
one?
the other guru.
Oh, this is my sister, Sam. Okay. Hi. This is her puppy, Bailey, and that's my mom.
Hello.
Hello.
Very nice. Oh my God. We're going to have to bless that guru sometime and get a blessing from that guru.
Aww.
Dogs are for sure guru. Amanda, thank you for coming on and like being like, first of all, thank you from what I know about you and what, you know, wow, like, thank you for being a human being. Like, thank you for living like in the world and showing up as yourself and being also free and courageous as a woman. Like, you're such a courageous human being. So thank you for being that type of person.
Thank you so much.
What's going on? Like, why did we connect first? You got to tell me, like, cause that's important.
Why did we connect?
Why did we connect, like, about this? Like, why are you here?
Oh, about this. Okay. You saw a post I made yesterday on Facebook, and I was creating an offering for anyone in my network. If It was about vegetarianism. If anyone's been thinking about becoming a vegetarian and maybe have been struggling or don't know how to start, and I'm able to give offerings of supplements people can take, foods they can substitute into their diet, and just overall how to have a healthy lifestyle through food and what you put in your body.
So like, you know what I liked about what you said? I didn't feel that you were a coach. You know, I didn't get that sense like you're a coach or I felt like you really want to like hold somebody's hand. Like, that's what I felt. Like, you want to hold, like, gently, even if it's whoever it is, doesn't matter what walk of life. Like, I imagine you holding their hand through this process.
Yeah, totally. I've helped a few people. Like, just, I was in New York for 2 weeks staying with a friend. And when I opened the fridge, really, there wasn't one thing that I would want to eat. You know, all processed foods, all these, like, fattening dressings, tons of meat. Anyways, and he had told me that his doctor told him if he doesn't change his diet, he'll die. His dad had a heart attack, and he was in his late 40s, and he had gotten this warning, like, I need to change what I eat. I need to do a whole lifestyle change. And I don't know anyone better to help me than you. And I said, okay, like, I was supposed to leave New York, and I said, okay, well, how about I stay with you for 2 weeks? You let me revamp your whole fridge, do whatever I want. I'll take
Credit card. Did you get a credit card?
Yeah, I said, I'll take you to grocery store. Took him to Whole Foods. But yeah, I essentially threw out every shelf in the fridge. We went to Whole Foods. He didn't know of half the foods I was putting in our cart, which are like superfoods, just vegetables that he wouldn't eat. And because, it was such a transformation. He lost about 12 pounds in just over 2 weeks. And I got him a gym membership. So I started going to the gym with him every day.
Wow.
I wanted to teach him the lifestyle and like help him through it. So I was there with him from moment to moment, and then just encouraged him, like, hey, after I leave, now you know how to make your smoothies, make your salads, and get your protein, etc., etc. And he continued after I left, and yeah, he's doing really good, and he lost a lot of weight.
So I think what's interesting about that is like, and this is interesting. I mean, I couldn't help but listen to you. First, I was like imagining it. I learned one time that like the best way to listen to people is to like imagine what they're talking about, right? And like visualize it. And so I was visualizing this, and I was like, whoa, this would be a great way for people to like segue into reintegrating in society. Like right now, everyone's sequestered alone. Like people could easily reach out to their friends and be like, listen, I'll come over to your place and like I'll help you change your habits, right? Like, and make positive habits, and that way we can also. Like we're like not jumping into society right away, but we're like slowly to the people we know, and like helping them become more resilient, right? And so we also helps us, because if they don't get sick, then we don't get. I mean, it ends up working.
Yeah, so we all need to boost our immune systems, and what better way than eating healthy and eating like superfood and drinking lots of water.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for holding hands. So if anybody out there needs a holding hand, or they know somebody who needs holding hand, and on top of that, Amanda, you do a ton of other things. Like you're a yoga teacher. You do a lot of stuff. You're a massage therapist. It's like awesome. So
yeah, just over 10 years doing massage therapy and energy healing, Reiki. I'm doing tarot card readings for the past 4 years. And actually my sister she has a podcast called Hello Beautiful. So it's women. Hello. There she is. And she interviewed me yesterday morning on some of my experiences from my travels and what I've learned, and some struggles that I went through along the way. And the big miracle that happened during my travels was I had the opportunity to meditate with Dalai Lama in a cave.
What?
And it's funny you were talking about caves in India and how gurus would go in caves, and essentially I found my guru in one. So yeah, you guys gotta go click on the podcast, have a listen. It's about 25 minutes, and I tell my story of how that unfolded.
And that way we can listen to your sister, right? As well.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Every
Well,
single week we release amazing, inspiring stories. So every Thursday.
Very good to know. I mean, I think, first of all, I got to compliment you guys for supporting each other, right? I feel it's so hard these days to have siblings that like out of their way support each other. There's always some shadiness going on or some shadow stuff going on with siblings.
Yeah. We had fun with it. We literally just like got into a closet and recorded it yesterday, put it out there, just quarantine style, did what we had to do. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you. I mean, thank you, Amanda, for, doing this work. I really hope you stay, I hope you also be involved with maybe the Cosmic Lab, you want to teach anything to kids. I think, you have that inner child that's active in you. So if you want to share that with kids and inspire them.
I'd love to.
That'd be cool. And in the meantime, people can reach out to Amanda. Amanda, if you want to even if you have any like links or anything, even in the messages here, feel free in Zoom if you want to put a link to what you do.
Yeah, I'll link to my website. And from there, people can message me. I have all my tarot reading info there if people are interested in any guidance.
Very good. I think that going vegetarian is important. I think that's going to be a big game changer. I'm not even saying it religiously. I'm not saying I'm literally saying it physiologically, like it's worth right now people exploring it, and it's worth getting your hand held, like, because you'll have connection. You'll meet somebody new, maybe somebody beautiful.
Yeah, like, you guys are pretty much vegetarian.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pescatarian. So halfway there.
They've transferred. My mom's been eating super healthy this lockdown. I've introduced her to a lot of superfoods. We're making ashwagandha,
smoothies,
like the mushroom lattes.
I don't believe that. I didn't believe that was your mom. I thought that was your sister. That's so. She must be super healthy.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
You're going to be helping and spreading, just love all over. And if we all stick together, I think that, can make a big difference. And that's really what we need.
Of course. I mean, thank you. I was actually trying to spread hate, and you got love out of it, then that's great.
I love the Buddha tree behind you too.
Of course. We got to remember where we come from, where we go. Right. So thank you, Amanda. I'm gonna bring
you're welcome.
I'm gonna bring Carolyn. Thank you so much. You guys stay on. Please enjoy the rest of the show. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, and we got. Let me get some laughter. Let me get some clapping. Some clapping. Let's clap. We're gonna clap on Carolyn. Dr. Carolyn. Come on over to the stage. Come on, Carolyn. Walking over to the stage. Walk out to the stage. Hey, give me a hug. Give me a hug.
Virtual hug.
Well, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wait, hold on. First of all, before we get started, where are you right now, like in the world?
I'm in Hawaii. I'm in Honolulu.
You are sequestered in Hawaii?
Yeah. Well, I came here right before the quarantine, so it was good timing for me to focus inward. Not yet picked up, obviously, for many reasons, but my practice has slowed down, but I've been doing a lot of work on an online summit that it was a vision of being able to educate and reach people around the world without having to be physically, like I started this before the pandemic, but be able to educate people on how to change your health naturally and connect with different healers. And I learned so much from the process that I wanted to share with everybody how I got healthier. And a lot of the people on the show were doctors, but some of them were not. Like people who were, and it's really funny because like some of my friends are like, you had like a medical intuitive, a lymphatic therapist, like a health coach. Like these aren't doctors. I'm like, but they're teaching me about things that they never taught me in medical school. And this is like the most valuable education for myself and for my patients, because maybe it's something that could help other people with their own health. Even if someone doesn't agree with, using medical intuition, I'm sure there are people that will benefit from that speaker. But I've been, taking all the information and applying it on myself, because I feel like what we have to do is focus on the immune system.
Yes.
We've been inundated with fear, and I think that if we strengthen the immune system, it doesn't matter if it's cancer or COVID, it would be a less likely chance of us developing, hospitalizations and other side effects. And I believe in the ability of a body to heal itself. And we just have to change our diet, integrate exercise, make sure we're drinking clean water, like really, simple things, taking the right supplements. None of this is something that the pharmaceuticals can charge money for. Or I've been taught in medical school, they never taught us this. And it's just like, oh, you have an infection, take an antibiotic. They never taught us how to use the body to heal itself. No, never.
Well, okay, Carolyn, hold on one second. Before you go deeper, I definitely got to share, first of all, everybody, you guys, Carolyn is amazing. Like, I got to tell you, first of all, she studied, and you have a BS in computer engineering?
Yes, I do have a bachelor's in computer engineering and a master's in biomedical engineering. So I did a lot of education.
Wait, hold on, but that's interesting. So you have this computer education, this engineering education.
Very technical. Yes.
Engineering. And Charlie, Charlie, you can tune in, right? You can chime in right here. You went from a computer person to acupuncture school now, and you're in acupuncture school. So that's interesting. And so Carolyn, I want to talk about that real quick. I want to ask you a question about that. How does that make you a different doctor? Like, comparing yourself when you speak to other doctors and other MDs, your background in engineering and computer science, how does that affect your practice?
Well, usually, like, when it comes to analyzing data, because I went down the rabbit hole of COVID, and I started just like looking at statistics, and I'm like, this does not make sense. Why are people freaking out? Like, I just started doing math, and I'm like, this is pure and simple math. And then my colleagues would go, well, we should trust the expert. Dr. Fossey knows everything. Like, well, you can use your brain and calculate numbers. I literally crunched my own numbers for Hawaii, because they didn't even tell us, like, they didn't summarize how many people were over the age of 65, 90% of them. How many people went to the mainland and were exposed? Like, probably like 25% of them. How many of them were male? There's a lot of risk factors. And I realized that, my way of looking at data, like, just look at who's affected and isolate the people who are traveling, people who are at risk, who have poor immune systems, the ones that are unfortunately in China. And here it's men who are over the age of 65 with comorbidities. So we have all this data that can inform us. So I look at things from a technical point of view, but it also helps me to to do kind of my marketing. I kind of nerd out when it comes to doing websites, but now I'm like looking at, how to reach more people with connection. It doesn't mean like, because you have more money that you'll be able to spread the message. They've spent a lot of money on marketing this COVID thing, but on Facebook, who knows, who's winning? People who they've been saying, oh, the anti-vaxxers, those people are, have a foothold on Facebook. And it's like, it is something that I think resonates with a lot of people, like this idea that, we aren't being told the whole truth.
Right.
And I think that we have to question the data, and we have to get the information out there. And, there's lots of different ways of getting it out there through non-Facebook sources. So I think that we've definitely been hypnotized by technology in being able to solve all our problems. It is not the solution. Getting chipped and vaccinated doesn't, who wants to be in the matrix?
I'm confused on how that's even still like considered. No.
Oh, and of course the bill that they just pushed in the House or whatever it was, Bill 666, HR 6666, literally taking away our ability to, have, that it says on the bill it's for contact tracing. So of course they need to track us, and then making sure to test people. And part of that is like vaccinations when it does come to fruition, to be able to make it mandatory. But realizing like there are natural things that we can do, like boosting the immune system. They don't talk about vitamin C or zinc or selenium. They've definitely taken off Plaquenil from the market. I don't know why.
Say that again?
The hydrochloroquine, they've literally made it impossible for anyone to get, even if you do need it, because it would seem to be like helpful for some patients. I'm not saying it's the end all, but we have to talk about other natural solutions. And I think that we have to look at the risk factors for people who are getting sick. We're living in a toxic world in cities. The people that are most affected in New York it's high density housing. Maybe we shouldn't be living in cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying don't live in a cold climate. It is nice and warm here, but yeah, living in dense apartment buildings.
Bad circulation, the circulation.
The air,
the circulation effect.
That's why Hawaii doesn't have as many cases. So I think that we have to look at like what is affecting our immune system from an environmental point of view. Why are people in California and Hawaii not getting sick to the same extent? And if they are, most of them are in nursing homes. Let's fix the nursing homes. They're like our 40% of the deaths are in nursing homes. So we have to like look at like what can we do to protect those people. And it doesn't mean taking the rest of a population and isolating them.
Exactly.
I don't know how that makes sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense.
So I don't, but I could go on and on, but really the emphasis I wanted to pivot what I was trying to do with my summit, which is anti-aging, is in order to age gracefully, people have to have a strong immune system. The person that got COVID that was 104 years old, didn't hear about that story on social media, but a 104-year-old recovered and celebrated his birthday. He got the Spanish influenza and COVID, and he survived. I want to know what is the reason why he has a strong immune system, but we're not thinking about that.
I wonder what his blood tastes like. Just kidding.
Exactly. You must be, I think that a lot of the people that live longer have less stress. They don't take any meds. You'll notice that in most older people that they the less meds they take, the longer they live. I mean, it's not just because they're healthier. Meds are making us sick. So we need to use our food as medicine. And there's a lot.
So with that, Carol, let me ask you a question we've been asking the last week, and with this topic, we're talking about redefining health. How would you define health? How would you define it before, and how would you define it? How would you redefine it?
Define health before.
I mean, how has it been defined? How do you feel it's been defined, and how would you redefine it? Yeah,
I think that people define health as like, from an anti-aging perspective, looking good, looking young. And it's not about looking young, it's about feeling young. And you only feel young when you are healthy, and you only feel old when you're sick. Let that sink in.
Wait, huh?
So
say that again.
You only feel young when you're healthy, and you only feel old when you're sick. So people who are 100 years old, have no medical issues, they probably feel young as a 20, like, I don't know. I should ask them, it's like, how old do you feel? But just think about that. Like, if you feel young, that means you're healthy. A lot of why I started doing this summit was because I felt old. I was burnt out from being a doctor, completely burnt out. And it didn't require that I moved to Hawaii, but it was like, might as well. I might as well move to Hawaii. But being able to reach people across the globe in whatever, like, I feel like that as practitioners who do holistic integrative health, unless people know about you, then you can't really make an impact.
Right.
And I think that's, you know, people focus on, you know, Dr. Fossey, but there's a lot of integrative practitioners out there who are, you know, also speaking the truth. And it is, you know, our duty as, you know, for us as physicians or healers to speak the truth and not just protect ourselves and, you know, go into quarantine. I didn't close. We didn't stop giving vitamin C. We're not doing it for COVID, but we're doing it to boost the immune system. But we, like other people, closed shop because they were like, well, we're just going to, you know, lay low. It's like, this is not the time to lay low. This is the time to rise up.
Wow, I think you hit it right there on the dot. And for me, it's been really important because you know, my relationship with the healthcare industry is such that, you know, being involved with improving the mental health of, you know, a lot of the people practicing. And I feel, you know, when I was in medical school, I got blasted, you know, I burned out fast, and I didn't have support in med school, and I didn't practice yoga or meditation. I didn't even know what those things, you know, I'm Indian, and I was like, what is that crap? I was like, I'm Indian, and I was like, what's I'm not meditating, I can't meditate. And so, you know, it took me kind of falling apart and finding my own path, but most physicians don't have the time. They're paying their physicians and nurses, they're paying their student loans. They're like in this space of fear because they're also in the place of like, I need to support this lifestyle that I bought. And it's so weird that we make them pay loans. Like what's going on? Our healers, we make our healers be in debt. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely not paying attention to ourselves. And I'll just share a quick story. While I was making the summit, I had a breast lump, and it was kind of disturbing. I'm like, I was afraid of getting sick. It actually, through the experience of creating the summit, I was like, I encountered this obstacle, and I'm like, okay, what should I do? Should I go to Western medicine? Should I just stop doing this and focus on my health? But I just pushed through it. And as I interviewed people, like the medical intuitive, she led me to another person who did lymphatic drainage, remote work. And it completely, like, just working with him, like through interviewing people, they told me the universe was telling me what I needed to do. That I started to apply myself, because I was just as unhealthy, even though I looked good on the outside, I felt old on the inside. And it, you know, the quarantine forced me to look at my own health and apply it to myself. And it completely cleared up with making dietary changes and exercise. Not in all cases. I'm not going to say this applies to everybody, but we have to think about, like, what are we missing in Western medicine? And a lot of it is like, we don't talk about the effects that diets or lymphatics have, or toxins have on our body, our immune system. And I definitely think that, you know, people who are integrative practitioners, like if they were to get COVID, they can go through it. And because we have all the tools. And it's almost to show people, it's like, no, we can heal naturally. I've never had COVID, but I'm just saying, I have friends that are integrative practitioners and they treated themselves and recovered. But not everyone has that opportunity. And I'm trying to give this knowledge to people so they know there are other ways, other solutions besides going to a Western doctor and getting stuff cut out and having chemotherapy. There's so many other things that they could do, but they're just not being told.
Carolyn, do you have is there any way for people to connect with you? You have a website?
Yeah, you can go on drcarolyncandido.com, and then there's also, I have a Facebook page link on the bottom of it. So you could connect with me through Facebook, through Dr. Carolyn Candido, or it might be, Dr. Carolyn Candido is one of my Facebook names. So connect to me on Facebook or through my website. And I still have a week left in my summit. Yeah, there it is. So you can get access, everyone can get access to the summit. You can listen to the talk on lymphatics. Like, I recommend everyone, there's so many great speakers.
Dude, Carolyn, these people look so young and like beautiful.
Yeah, they're like, you know, it's funny. Some of the speakers are like, I think you just interviewed me because I'm older than you. I'm like, no, you just happen to be older than me. But I think that like there's just a lot of knowledge, and so people can follow me on Facebook, and I'm doing also a podcast after the end of my summit, which will be Tea with Dr. Carolyn, and I'm doing a lot of interviews with local people, and I'm going to start writing more articles as well. So if you go to my website, you can follow me. But yeah, I love, this is addictive. I love interviewing people because I'm learning.
Well, you're being interviewed now, so
yeah, no, and just going on summits, I realize like why it's a thing. So like I'm gonna keep doing it and sharing the knowledge.
Yes, thank you. And I wanna end with a couple of more questions with you, but and a challenge at the end. But I want to talk about also what, like, you dance, and like,
yes,
you do some real dance. I'm seeing you dance.
I do. I just have, I have a passion for Zouk. It's a Brazilian dance, and I haven't been dancing with partners since the quarantine. So a lot of it is like online, and I realized that there's a lot of dance classes, and I take dance classes from teachers in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. So, so there's some good things, but nothing compares to having the connection of another human being. And I think that's another thing we have to think about, like when it comes to restructuring society. They're talking about like not letting, like with airports and schools, like imagine kids not touching each other, and then imagine a dance event where you really can't touch, you have a mask, and like I'm just like, okay, the young people have a strong immune system. I'm going to go out there and dance. Well, I'm not going to tell anyone because I just don't want to. But that's kind of like what I'm realizing that it's creating this disconnection, and people are hungry for skin. They are lacking connection, and like people didn't hug that much before COVID. These poor children, what's going to happen? They're going to be like even more autistic or Asperger's from not having any touch. Like it's really sad for this coming generation. And how can even people date? Like, I mean, it just really is going to be a huge change in society. So I personally don't think it's necessary if you're young. And how can you tell a child not to play with their friend? I don't see how you can do that.
Yeah, Charlie and I were talking about this earlier. One of the reasons why we started Cosmic Lab, the part of this where we work with kids and we do educational stuff with kids is, also getting them to a space where they're using their critical thinking, and they're also tapping into their own understanding of health, food, right? Like talking about food and how it affects them. If they have the tools to understand, they'll be way more resilient than us just telling them what to do. And we don't even know what we're doing, right? Like we need to just empower them with their own health, with their own ideas of their own health, right? And well-being.
Exactly. Yeah, and still keep connected. And I mean, hopefully things will go back to normal where we can have a dance social. Like I like dancing with people, but I mean, it's just a shame. Like there's going to be an adjustment for this year. A lot of the courses that I normally do, I'm just going to do virtually. It's just going to be different. So hopefully next year, well, in the fall, kids can actually go back to school. I don't know. The internet should not be school. It really should not.
I mean, and they're not doing it anyways. All my friends' kids, everything, they're actually not doing it. The kids are not feeling it. But
exactly. It's affecting a lot of people, especially the elderly or people who can't see their doctor. They don't want to do the telemedicine thing. They want to come to a doctor's office.
Yep.
And suddenly everything's telemedicine. Like people come to a doctor to connect with us, and it's resulted in less people apparently dying of heart attacks and strokes. They probably died of something else. I don't know where these people went, but I'm pretty sure they are still sick. So I think that it's a huge problem. Not everyone wants to do telemedicine. And I think we should acknowledge that we need to actually have like in-person visits and school. I don't really think it's a solution to put everything online. That's why I still practice medicine mostly like right now, not that much in the office, but I still believe in having an office.
So Carolyn, Carolyn, we're gonna bring on Ted soon and bring him onto the couch, onto the talk show couch, the Cosmic Labyrinth couch. But before we do, we'd like to give a question to everybody, right? And usually it's a random question. So your random question is, if you were any type of like a geographical figure, like your formation, like a geographic formation on the planet, what would you be? What kind of formation would you be? Geological. Sorry, the word is geological.
I guess I would be like a mountain. I don't know, like geological. I also like tree too, but yeah, I like the idea of being a mountain, like not just any mountain, but like a mountain island. So majority of my surface is underwater. And this tip you see is the island, but underneath we have a lot more.
So those tend to be volcanic. What are you trying to say?
Yeah, I think I'm a volcano. I'm pretty like I'm a volcano that's been covered up with, you know, plant life. So it's an older volcano. I'm an old volcano. I'm not young. I have an old soul. So I think I exploded a long time ago.
That's good. That's good news. It's good and bad news, because that means you're due for an explosion too.
It's okay. If it's my time, it's my time. I think that's why I really feel connected with the island. I think that there's definitely an ancient energy and power underneath the Hawaiian Islands that keeps us healthy. Not just the weather. I mean, it's definitely it drew me to live here. And I couldn't resist its calling anymore. So I'm glad I came back, but I still miss my home in San Diego. So when quarantine is lifted, I would like to visit my mom. But yeah, I think, you know, Hawaii is definitely, to me, the most perfect place in the United States, in my opinion.
Amazing. Thanks, Carolyn. Carolyn, thank you so much. Wait, stay on the seat. Stay on the couch, okay? Stay on the couch. We're going to bring you back when we get everybody talking with each other, okay? So stick around.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. So we need some more music. All right, hold on. We got to have some. Charlie, where's your ukulele, bro? Come on. Where's your ukulele, dude?
Oh, you were doing so good.
Charlie, what'd you think about Dr. Carolyn?
It was awesome. It's awesome to hear someone kind of who's in the space who really understand kind of the holistic ideas of like bringing everything together, right? And making an active effort to really help people rethink of. So for her, health is actually in the perspective of feeling young, and that's a very common thing that we deal with in everyday life. I think probably more women. I think that guys probably get it later. I think women probably hit that early, you know, but like for men, as soon as like probably, I don't know if it's 40 or 50, but like we'll hit it and we'll be like, oh my God, I'm falling apart. So, you know, but it's interesting to hear that that's, you know, the way that we could see health, right? It is actually the way we reflect our health is actually how we look younger versus how we are toxic inside is kind of how we look older. And that's a very good way of seeing health, right? Because so many times we wear makeup for that. Actually, in Chinese medicine, we tell a lot of people not to wear makeup because we need to take a picture of their face to tell them what their problems are, because their face is where their symptoms will show up. So we have to see whether they have real rosy cheeks, or do they put on blush, right, to get that rosy cheek? And if we were to remove the makeup and it's white, they're like, whoa, you're missing blood. And we need to let them know that they need to take medicine that replenishes blood. But if they're wearing makeup, we're not seeing that. So I think a lot of times it's important for us to recognize that we sometimes cover a lot of what's important in our health, and then we're not able to see what's internally happening.
Yep, I think you hit it right on the mark. Yeah, Charlie. And with that in mind, I think it's kind of interesting because our next guest that we're going to be bringing on is actually like he's going to take this thing in a different perspective. So let's bring on Ted. Are you ready, Charlie, for Ted?
Yeah, ready. Let's bring on
Ted. Ted, what's going on? Ted? Wait, everybody, let's clap for him. Woo, Ted, are you there? Ted. Ted. What's up, man?
Hello.
I think we can give a handshake through the screen. There we go. Right, there we go. How you doing, brother?
Not too bad. Dealing with, keeping kids asleep. So excuse me if I have to run off. But making it work, I liked what has been spoken about so far in terms of kids and how much of a toll this is taking on kids. I've got two small boys, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. And we finally decided we're going back to Sweden. In 1 week, the 6-year-old will go with my wife. And then 2 weeks later, I'll take the 2-year-old because Sweden didn't close down.
Yeah.
And they're kind of maybe acting like the only sane country in the world.
Wow.
About this entire experience, and they actually have a plan, and they're actually using that plan, and they actually thought about this ahead of time, and and they actually have a population that's listening to the government because they can trust the government because the government's not wildly corrupt, and it's kind of a nice experience. So
that's wow. Well, we're definitely gonna miss you because you're like such a valuable human being. I mean, really quick, just to introduce you to everybody. Ted and I, we worked on a film years ago with Rosario Dawson and Sean Lennon were in there, right? Sean, right? That was kind of cool. Sean Lennon. Anyways, Second Degree coolness. But yeah, man, that was really fun to meet Ted there. We've stayed friends, and over the years, Ted has done some crazy, amazing stuff. I mean, he's been with the Stanford Peace Innovation Lab, working on some really cool. He's a visiting scholar there, working on projects with that really cool Peace Innovation Lab. Just that sounds cool. And then he also was
good branding.
Yeah, and it's also like cool because you've done stuff with time banking, and like you've done cool stuff in film, but now you're like also doing like men's circles, and you're involved with women's circles, and Quantum Warrior is what it's called, and we'll share more of that. But I think it's really cool, brother, for you to show up the way you do. I'm really honored to have you on this show, honored to share you with the world, share what your mission is, because I think it's, there's people who do things in life, and you have a really close association with your purpose. And for men, that's such a that changes the game when you have connection to purpose. So thank you for showing up in that way as a man and showing up with purpose, with your family also, showing up for your family. I mean, dude, bro, I can't say too much about you. You're amazing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man. So, okay, I got the first question for you. First question is, so you do these circles, right? And what is the point? How does that connected to this whole COVID thing? And how is it connected to health and mental health? And why is that even important? What's going
on? I was actually thinking, how is it connected to COVID? It's connected to COVID in a couple of ways. One way it's connected to COVID is that our entire response to COVID is a masculine response. And it's actually mostly an immature masculine response. So the immature masculine is, as the shamans will say, they are in battle, and their job is to bring home the spoils of war. And then the men go through the long, dark night of the soul. And if they come out the other side, not all do, but if they come out the other side, they are wise men. And wise men are of service. And they see everything they do as of service. So when I see a lot of the rhetoric and the storytelling around COVID, it's a lot of let's fight this thing. It's us against it. It's a lot of non-holistic, non-integrated thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's usually destructive. And I think it usually makes an enemy out of something that's not necessarily an enemy, and not necessarily helpful to make it an enemy. It's sort of a typical response to make the other wrong.
Yes.
My favorite person on what's happening right now is Dr. Zach Bush. And he speaks about how viruses, and I don't know that much about the virome, so let me say that ahead of time. So I'm speaking from as an amateur, but in that we are actually made up to some degree of viruses, that we were created to some degree by viruses, that there is bacteria and viruses around us at all times, and that our interaction with it is complicated, and it's not as simple as saying good, bad, and things of that nature. I also think that when we look at masculinity, well, at least my initial response was, it feels like men are responsible for all the world's problems.
Whoa.
And you know, that's way too simple a response. That's an immature masculine response. But it's really how I saw things. And then I started to realize, well, no, you know, there's different levels of masculinity. Masculinity means different things depending on where you are in the spectrum. And so what we do with the men's circle, or I should say that the men's circle, I created it in order to get myself and others across the long, dark night of the soul, because I feel like we don't really have elders to initiate us into being wise men, that most of the elders or the people who are in positions of power are immature masculine. They're still in battle. They are still bringing home the spoils of war, to the point where we almost have a weird fascination with like boy kings, whether it be Zuckerberg or Trump or any of the senators,
Elon Musk, or
any of them. I mean, and it's not to make them wrong or make them bad, but they don't feel like elders, and so it doesn't feel like a place that we can really learn to find our way, and to find a way to be sustainable in our approach to anything, to be integrated. And so, you know, even the response to COVID is one that it's an unintegrated response. You know, it's like, we don't even know. Every week it's different. Every day it's different. We have completely different conversations. You know, for example, one thing which is fascinating to me is I have yet to see anything that demonstrates for sure that kids can not only get COVID, but can give it to adults. That hasn't been demonstrated.
Have anybody said that kid died? I don't think I've heard a kid dying. That's interesting.
No, there's also another issue with the death question is, as Carolyn was saying, that you know, if you look at the numbers are already ridiculous in terms of, you know, I mean, we're not even in the we're in the same ballpark as flu. We just don't have a good story about flu. We have a good story about COVID. It's a much better narrative. I mean, you and I were in film, and we know that, like, if you tell a good story, you'll get people's attention. And this is a very good story.
Actually, if you want to get people to do something, you tell stories that then brainwash them into thinking that's the norm. Like, literally.
And you start out by calling the character something that, you know, everybody could get their hands around, like COVID. You know, it's like, it's got a good, you know, it's got a good ring to it. It's good branding.
Great branding.
The other problem, though, is that even the numbers that look unreasonable as they are, there's another issue, which is that we're also counting anybody who dies with COVID as having died from COVID.
Right.
We don't do that with the flu.
No.
So we're not even comparing apples and apples, which is a real problematic situation.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I'm gonna come back, Ted. I'm gonna circle back into what you said in the masculinity and the idea of the boy king and what we all revere, what we look up to. I think when you look at that, that kind of is like indicative of how administrations are acting right now. Like it's not just administrations like our political ones, like it's also the health administrations, right? The healthcare system, the education system, the law enforcement administrations in any space right now, computer software company administrations, right? Like you notice that because they revere that boy king thing, there's this weird thing that like decision making is bad. Like literally, like people are not making wise decisions literally in our backyards, like our own back, like whoever's watching this, wherever you are, the people around you who are making decisions for your building, for your community, for your city, whatever the heck it is. Most of them are not acting like elders. You said it so well. Like they're all boy kings, and if there are women there, and there are some good people here and there, but like even women don't have that much power. They don't have as much say. Like there's a significant amount of droppage of women CEOs, female like leadership and council. I mean, it's crazy. Law enforcement. Whoa. Like no, hardly any females. But I certainly think that's interesting to talk about is like masculinity, talks masculinity. Then what can we do? Like Ted, you do stuff, right? Where you bring people together. What is like a path forward with this? Like, okay, here's the situation. We know, Ted, you and I, we all know people who are toxic men, right? We know them in our lives, or maybe they're our dads, maybe they're our brothers. What is the way forward for this? Like, how can we actually take this boy king mentality and turn it into leadership and maybe community? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I think actually what you just said is really interesting, because when I first got to the Peace Innovation Lab, I told them that I want to work on interventions for toxic masculinity. And about 2 months later, I realized that's a toxic approach. And so I think when we say things like, we know toxic men, I think it's much better to say, we know that there is toxicity around us in the masculine, and it's all of our jobs. And the sort of restorative justice approach is that we're all part of the circle. You know, and it's all of us to take the toxin and bring it up and out of the body, to change the toxin into a gift, because maybe there's something in that strength of the toxin. I mean, sometimes toxins, if in the right amount, can be medicine. Yeah. You know, it's when they're too strong that they start to be destructive. So I would say that we have to be careful not to call other men toxic. And you know, I think Carl Jung would probably say, the moment that you call another man toxic, ask yourself, where's that toxin in me? And if you do the work and find that toxin in you, and really like, you know, hold it and get to a place where you're in control of it, rather than it being in your shadow, well, then I think you're doing the work, which is the work we're trying to do, of transmuting that toxin into a gift that we can give to the world. And so I would say that's one piece. And the second piece, I really believe in like a very simple way that it's sort of unfair to say this just for men, but I'm specifically focused on men because that's the work I'm doing. If men learn how to listen, and let me be clear, I am of the men I am speaking to. So this message is as much for me as for anybody. If men learn to listen as if they are creating a container for that which is being said, not to understand what is being said, but to know the person who is speaking, so that the person speaking feels seen, well, then we start to create an opportunity to change those toxins into gifts. Mm-hmm. And we create an opportunity for more people to be involved. I mean, women specifically, because I really do think that there's, at some very, very simple level, and this might be too simple, women need to take over, because we're in, like, men aren't making it work very well. But that's probably too simple. That's probably a toxic approach, because that's probably not an integrated, and that's probably my ego wanting a simple solution rather than thinking in an integrated way.
I'm gonna say two things. That I agree with you, Because I think that everything is not like a right angle where you just fit a block in and you fit another block. That's not like nature, right? Things are like wavy and curvy, and things are like in curves, right? So like, just like that, just like a rubber band, it's like you can test the tensility of a rubber band, or even in space-time continuum might be a rubber band that vibrates. And when we talk about the masculine and feminine, it's kind of imbalanced on the masculine side in the world right now. Our own communities, our families are imbalanced, a lot of them, towards the masculine. When you bring it back to the middle, it's not going to come back to the middle automatically. It's not going to go click. Like, it needs to kind of bounce back, to come back into the middle, right? It's going to need to,
Or another way to think about it is the more like the tantra approach to the masculine and the feminine would be more that the problem right now is that the masculine and the feminine are too close to each other. That it's not that there's too much masculine, there's too much immature masculine. There's not enough mature masculine, which is way out here in the pole, which would allow for the divine feminine to show up as well. Because by bringing out the poles, you are able to create more energy and more possibility. And it's actually when they get pushed together and they get seen as not non-differentiated, that we start to have a lack of the energetic possibility of having two poles. And to be clear, this is not to suggest that we have to be careful when we talk about masculinity and femininity, because usually we think masculine, we think man, and we think feminine, we think woman, and that's not what I mean. All humans have a masculine and feminine pole, and the question is, how much can we increase the distance between the polarities so that you can get more out of it, like a battery.
Yeah. And that's funny that we were talking about this. When I was bringing this work to the San Francisco Police Department, those police officers had no clue what I was talking about. Like, this is like, so we're talking about this and we're speaking, some of the people listening to this have some education on this, but like, there's a lot of people in our communities that have no idea what this even is coming close to, and so like you were saying something earlier, this is all of our responsibility. Like, this is all of us to kind of to create the awareness and the ability for people to make the choices to become better men, become better women, or whatever they want to be in between. I mean, now people can be whatever they want, but no, it's up to them, but at least they can be the best version of that, right? And that's what we want to be able to do, but we have the responsibility. I think you're doing the men's circles, right? I think that's really valuable, but you kind of pivoted because you would like take people into the woods, and there would be like stuff where like adventure style stuff, and you were kind of getting deep, doing like ceremonial stuff, but now you can't do that stuff right now. So what have you been doing right now to circumvent that?
Well, so when I was still in Brooklyn, we actually moved online long before COVID.
Okay.
And so that actually worked out great, because when COVID happened, there were a lot of people trying to create intimacy online. And their answer to it was sort of simplistic, like, oh, we'll all get online and we'll have a beer together, or that sort of thing. And generally, I find that conversation is not a great tool for intimacy. And then it's an especially bad tool when you're not in person. Mm-hmm. So then the question is, well, how do you create intimacy? Mm-hmm. And the way we do it is we use a talking piece. So you can only talk when you have the talking piece. The talking piece only goes in one direction, and you can pass. Mm-hmm. And you never are speaking in response to something that someone else has said, unless you're saying it from your own point of view. So if I would say something like, when Indy said this, it made me think this in my own experience. And so now we're not having a conversation in order to get information across or content across. And we're not trying to understand each other or agree with each other. We're trying to know each other. Mm-hmm. And it's a very different experience, because I don't have to agree with you. I don't even have to understand you. But if I can know you and you can feel known, and we as consciousness can feel that we exist, then we get that intimacy that we're looking for, I think, in the first place.
That's interesting you brought that up, because when I was actually when I was dropping Charlie off in Houston, we drove from LA to Houston, and we stopped at a bunch of, like random really red areas, right? Like it was extremely red. And we stopped at some diners, right? And they'd never seen anybody like me. I was wearing, my kurta, I got my crystals, I got my flute in my hand in the middle of Texas. And like I kind of like took it as a challenge to it, like people were looking at me and they were trying to there was judgment going on, but I made a point to connect with them. I made a point to listen to them, to like talk to them, engage with them. And it was amazing because when I left those places, and Charlie can attest, when I left those places, those people were different. They were like different than they were when I walked in, and like maybe their perspective expanded. Can't explain it. But I think that's where all of our responsibility comes into, is taking a little bit more extra step to start to break down those walls that are all around us. And now there's gonna be even more, oh my God, the walls are gonna be even more extensive. So you gotta make even more of an effort.
I would say the thing I would say in order to be a little bit careful, because maybe not for you, because you have a softer approach, but for me, I need to be careful when I start to think I want to break down other people's walls. That's when I think to myself, wait a minute, what am I trying to infiltrate into them? What am I not hearing from them that I could be hearing from them, which would actually allow the situation to change? Because one thing that Circle teaches you is that the way you listen probably has way more impact than anything you have to say. It's the quality of your listening, which fundamentally shifts other people. The other thing I've been thinking about, like red states and red spaces and things like that, is what have we done on the, let's say, left or the liberal or whatever, what have we done on the other side to make them so afraid? Like, how do we take responsibility for their fear? Because they're clearly very fearful. Trump is bringing people into their fear, and what are we doing? Why are they so afraid of us? What are we doing? How can we take responsibility? Because another big piece, besides trying to be vulnerable in the circle, another big piece of the work is, well, how can I take responsibility? How can I take responsibility for things that are things I wouldn't think I'm responsible for? How can I take responsibility for it anyway? And what can I do about it anyway? Because responsibility simply means respond. So how can I respond in an effective and useful way to things that I don't think are my problem, or that I didn't cause?
Yeah, and I think the really cool magic about a circle, is, I think what's interesting when you get in that circle and you start reflecting each other within that circle, you start reflecting each other. It's surprising what you end up finding, like how many people resonate, like their stories resonate with yours, or in some way, shape, or form, what they do, maybe the way they take responsibility is like something that you needed to take responsibility with. You're like, oh my God, I can do that. I didn't know I could do that.
Absolutely. The other thing I found, which I was sort of surprised by, this is sort of obvious, but I didn't find this obvious until recently. We all have exactly the same feelings, not at the same time and not for the same reasons, but we all have the exact same feelings. So we actually all understand everyone else, not understand. We all have the same experience that everyone else has, just not at the same time. Whoa. And that's the big difference.
Whoa, bro, you just went psychedelic on me. Hold on one second. I need to make sure I didn't like take some acid or something like that. Hold on one second. What? That was great, because it is a spectrum of colors within our consciousness.
Yes. And we all have all of them. Sad, mad, glad, all of them. And yet we don't have them for the same reasons. Right. So we don't always get why someone else is feeling a certain way. And I'm starting to realize that getting why someone else feels a certain way doesn't matter as much as holding space for them when they're feeling that way, because you know what it means to feel that, or you know the experience of feeling that way, regardless of why they got there. They have a different narrative that led them to this moment in time. So they're going to have a different experience. They're going to have a different reason for their experience, but the experience they're having, you've had that too.
Big time. That's awesome. I love that. That's so cool, Ted. All right. So we're gonna be we're gonna one last question for you. Then we're gonna have you sit on the move over on the couch. So Carolyn's gonna move over, and you're gonna move over on the couch, and we're gonna bring on Dr. Minnie. But before we do, what geological configuration are you?
Can it be something that's alive?
I mean, I consider all Earth alive. Like,
Or I mean, can it be something that like? Okay, I mean, I'll just answer. I'm gonna go with coral because I'm kind of sad that it's all dying, and so I want it to kind of like it's really sad. It's such an amazing thing, and it's it's alive. It's like it's an animal.
I never thought about that. That is a geological configuration, but it's alive. Interesting.
It's literally an animal. So I mean, and most of them are dead at this point. But
I wonder if the quarantine will help bring it back to life, like everything else.
Yeah, that's great.
I do know a scientist that's doing something robotic stuff, replanting corals right now, and stuff is still going on. So that might be happening, Charlie. Actually.
That's awesome.
So let's put it out there. Let's put it out there. Thank you, Ted. Thanks for being awesome. Stick around. Bring you back in a couple minutes. All right.
Thank you.
Cool. So everybody, I want you to welcome our next guest, who is really exciting. Last but not least, we're bringing on Dr. Minnie Kaur, but we mean slash Manmeet Ratu, and we're gonna bring her on the show. But let's all give her a nice claps, give her a good cheer. Let's go, Dr. Minnie. Remember your. Bring Arsenio Hall. What's up? What's up, Dr. Minnie?
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
It's great listening to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sticking around, and obviously you got to have some dinner too, which is nice beforehand. I hope you had some.
I cooked. I haven't eaten yet. I'm staying with my family right now.
It's probably smelling the whole smell.
Yeah.
Unless you guys cook in the garage like we do.
No, we cook in the regular kitchen.
Well, welcome. I'm really excited to have you on here. You got a really cool background. You've not only practiced as a psychologist, but you also work with recidivism and working with people going back to helping them not go back to prison. So you have some interesting stories, insights there, which I'm sure is going to be very interesting for some of the people on here. And you also got into Ayurveda and yoga. I mean, you actually studied at Stanford, right? There was a certification program there for compassion.
I did the C-Care program through their Compassion and Altruism Center. So it was an 8-week program. It wasn't extensive, but I did a lot of learning about self-compassion through that program. And I do embody that in the work that I do with these guys are on parole or on probation. So I use that with them.
Very cool. And you also incorporate Ayurveda and yoga into what you do, and you're creative, you're integrative with how you practice. And as a psychologist, I think that's interesting. Like, how do you think those things affect your perspective of health? Like
Yeah, absolutely. I started doing yoga in my own practice about 20 years ago. And it was just something for myself that I found was helpful to manage my stress, and felt good for my own body. And when I went to graduate school, my stress levels had increased a lot. I noticed that I really needed to do better at taking care of my health. And I was learning more also about yoga psychology. So there were a lot of research that was emerging in the field of psychology of how yoga helps with things like depression and anxiety, stress management. So I did the yoga teacher training while I was in grad school. And it was my goal to incorporate what I was learning in the studio with my patients. And so I started using that with, I was working in a pain clinic for my postdoc at a hospital. So I was able to teach there and with the chronic pain patients, and really teaching them about internal resources to heal their own body rather than depending on the medical system or their doctor or a medication, because that's frustrating. And a lot of these people would keep coming back over and over. So it was really my goal to teach them things like yoga and meditation and things that they can do for themselves to heal their own body.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to do that and to incorporate that. I mean, you're really big into research. Like, I mean, have you published anything, or have you been involved with some cool publishing?
Nothing major. I mean, I've done a lot of sessions and talks, poster presentations, and things like that at conferences. The only published thing I have is my dissertation, but that was on the experience of Asian American women diagnosed with breast cancer. And even with that, the findings were, you know, a lot of them, they would talk a lot about post-traumatic growth and resiliency. And again, tuning into what they had for themselves, like being grateful and not letting the little things go, and doing things like yoga and meditation and eating healthy. It was a lot about self-nurturance that really helped them get through that time.
And that's some important stuff. I mean, I think, you know, it's important for, like, I think especially for like people who are first or second generation, you know, for also for them to connect to their culture and their backgrounds, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and even what I was hearing, was it Ted, the last speaker? Yeah, so Ted and also Caroline, you know, you guys, I was hearing this theme of awareness, you know, and I always teach that that's the pillar of any change, is to build awareness. Even if you can't change anything yet, let's start tuning in a little bit and check in with what we're feeling, what our behaviors are, what our actions are, and that way we can start looking at how to change. But a lot of people, we walk around on autopilot. We're not really paying attention to what we're doing in the day. You know, we have 50 to 70,000 automatic thoughts in a day, and a lot of them are repetitive, and we don't really pay attention to how that affects our behavior or how it affects our emotions, and then that again affects our productivity at work or our relationships. So really spending time and even using this now, this quarantine, as an opportunity for that. And so I'm looking at this time as an opportunity for people to spend more time alone, and looking at this rather than as a time of being lonely. We're looking at it as a time to live in solitude, and that can be very empowering. And you know, a lot of, like, you talk a lot about the gurus being alone and going off, and you know, they had to spend this time in solitude in order to really self-reflect and figure out how to help heal other people.
Yeah, and there's two sides of it, right? There's the people who are alone, and sometimes they're if they want to, they can tap into their imagination, their inner world, their inner consciousness, and maybe come up with new art, new ideas, new ways of living, I mean, all kinds of stuff. On the other side of it, there's the people who have families, right, that are in like weird situations with their family too. Because I'll tell you, my situation was weird. You know, some of my family is super scared, and some of my family is like, this doesn't make sense, whatever. And like, it's like weird to like deal with that, you know? So how can we like deal with that? Like, and you are also Punjabi and Indian. Like, what do you think about that? Like how Indian people, how like people are acting, immigrants, families.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of, I mean, it's hard to digest. You know, there's a lot going on, and a lot happens in a day. So again, I ask even my parents, they love to watch the news 24 hours. I've been staying with them, and I have to remind them to just monitor their intake. You know, we're consuming a lot. You know, we talk about diet, you know, but a diet is not just what you eat. It's what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, you know, and the people you hang around with too. And, you know, being mindful of how that's affecting our brain, and how that's affecting us spiritually and emotionally and physically. You know, those are going to really impact on just even on a physiological level. You know, if you're thinking about how thoughts affect neurotransmitters and how that impacts the way our body responds to stress and just overall trauma, if you have a history of trauma. So just being mindful again, of being aware of what it is that you're consuming in a day. It's good to be informed, and you know, like, I still have to keep informed with what's going on in the news and the media. That way we can stay safe and keep each other in safety, and taking care of each other, know what's going on in the world, but then being mindful of how much you're consuming in a day, and then balancing that also with, you know, self-care and creating, you know, because the opposite of consuming is creating. You have to expel that energy somehow. So do it through a creative outlet, or even just if you're able to exercise or move or journal, you know, art, being able to express it in a healthy outlet.
Planting, you could plant stuff, you know, you could start planting your front yard, your backyard, community space, creating a community space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gardening, that would be great. I
Gardening's
can do
good.
that.
So let me ask you this question. How was health defined before or now, and how would you redefine health?
Sure, that's a really good question, because I think when people hear the word health, they automatically think of, like we were talking about earlier, the physical body. You know, we think of, you know, how Western medicine is. Even our ailments are usually, it's treated physically. And so we're looking, when you talk about health, people talk about, you know, like how Caroline was saying, aging. And then we're looking at, you know, how strong you are, how vital you are physically. But to me, health is, you know, there's so much more to it. It's having a healthy mindset. It's being emotionally healthy, having mental health, healthy mental health. Is that right? Healthy mental health. I guess that's right. So, you know, and then spiritually healthy too, you know, having that connection to something greater than yourself.
We don't say that. We don't say that word. We don't say spiritual here.
So spirituality, I know it's people get kind of hard, you know, even like the word God, you don't have to look at it that way. It doesn't have to be a religious affiliation, but, you know, maybe looking at it as a sense of meaning and purpose, or something greater than yourself. If that's a hard, you know, or even if, you know, you don't have to use the word God, you know, you can talk about the universe, you can talk about an energy, but we're all talking about the same thing at the end of the day, because we have to be a part of something greater than ourselves in order to really be healthy as a species, in order to thrive, in order to succeed as a species. We have to be socially connected. And you can be even amongst a bunch of other people and not feel socially connected to them. It's really, the more connected you are to yourself, the easier it is to extend that to other people.
Very true. It's very true. Yeah. And you know, with that being said, you know, you're kind of doing some beautiful stuff out there to help out the community and being aware and being in that space. I'm actually trying to find it right now. Shoot, I can't find it. But tell us what is going on in India, and yeah, like how are you?
Oh yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. So my dad is he's a giver. He likes to create. He does a lot of. We're from a small village, a rural village in Punjab called Sangatpur. And so he does do these monthly kirtans, you know, prayer service with food. And he also recently started donating since COVID-19. You know, a lot of people had lost their jobs and they're not able to sustain even their already very limited resources. And so he wanted to start creating a program where we're donating more to families that are in need. And so that what I had posted on my page were pictures where we were donating to families for a 1 month supply of groceries. So I had like wheat flour, ghee, tea bags, rice, lentil, dal, you know, I had a bunch of things in there that, you know, it gave me an idea of, you know, I want to continue to help him sustain that, because he's doing this out of pocket on his own, and which is a great initiative. But I feel like the more awareness that we bring to these types of communities, and there's a lot of people that want to help but really don't know how. So that's why I put that out there today. And it's really my initiative that I'd like to build on, you know, just creating more, just help with basic supplies, food and medical supplies. And then my long-term goal is to work with the girls in that village and help them to be a part of, you know, learning the skills that you need to work, and the education that you need to build some type of program. So I'm just getting started with that. I haven't really planned anything out. I just put it out there to see if other people are interested, or if you have ideas, or if you've ever done anything like this. I'd really love to connect and learn more about even how to start something like this.
I would like to add something in that. I think it's so important to think about the fact that what you're doing, that action of like maybe even taking that step to help like a community, because that's a whole community that you're helping, right? Like that also brings us health in a lot of ways, right? Like from a physiological, I mean, you know better than me, like from a physiological point of view, does that improve our immune system, our health, our does it help?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of studies on this too, in the studies of altruism. You know, when people are more altruistic and giving, it benefits them more than it does to the person that they're giving to. From the physiological level, like boosting their immunity and helping their physical health, and then of course even mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That, you know, the more you're able to be altruistic and to provide, and it doesn't have to be through money, but any type of service, like even giving a smile, you know, when you're able to get out in the world and just smile at people and be kind, you benefit more than the other person receiving that. And then they're more likely to pay it forward too when someone's kind to them or does something for them.
Sure. That's a message that it sounds very like, it sounds very like foo-foo, or like what's the right word? I mean, it sounds cliche, right? But it's like,
I love cliche.
but it's
I
so
love
true.
cliche. Yeah.
I mean, we're Bollywood, so I'm Bollywood, so I love cliche. I'm all about the cliche. But I think it's important for us to, you know, share this more. Like, I think it's so valuable that people actually act on it right now, outside of any other time, that we like are even more compassionate now, because it's going to behoove us, like all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And
But
we're seeing that too. A lot of people are evolving and growing and looking at this as an opportunity to help and to give back. You know, as much as there's bad things going on in the world, there's even more good things going on in the world, whether that's reported or not. We know that the world is getting better over time. And, you know, I forgot there was a book that came out recently.
yeah, I know.
I'll get back to, but he talks a lot about all these different studies on how the world is actually improving and not getting worse.
That is important. Okay, so before I bring everybody on, all the other guests, and so you guys, we can have a quick talk together. What geological configuration are you?
I'm definitely a tree.
I think trees also, I don't think that counts. That's a geological, that's.
Oh, I thought something in nature. Okay.
Geological, like any earth configuration. Like you could be a water, like a river. You could be like a cliff. You could be a mountain.
Okay. I would say a mountain. A mountain is, you know, always itself. It's unmoving. It's always changing.
Nice.
Grounded and rooted to the earth.
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
The mountain, is it the mountain that Hanuman picked up?
We can make it that one.
He's like, I can't find the flower. But he's like, I can't find the flower. Fuck it, I'm gonna pick up the whole mountain. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for what you do. And you're gonna keep doing amazing stuff. It's so exciting to see you evolve and grow and be like Ted was talking. It's so awesome to see a female leader. You know, the same with Carolyn, and actually, you know, thank you just for, you know, representing that and showing up and also being there for your family. You know, it's really it's interesting to do both. So good job. Thank
you for facilitating this and having us.
Yeah, and awesome artwork in the back. I just want to acknowledge that. Like, can I see what's behind you?
Yeah, this is my old room at my parents' house.
What is that? It's so beautiful.
It's like those Indian paintings, you know, the Punjabi.
Yeah. So cool. I love those.
It's sort of turned into a storage room. I don't know. My mom has a lot going on here now.
Those suits have to go somewhere. All right, cool. Let's stay on. Let's bring everybody back. I'm gonna unmute Carolyn. I'm gonna unmute Ted. And let's bring you guys back, or maybe Ted has to unmute himself. Cool. Well, you know, welcome guys. Hello, you're back.
Hello. Yes.
So I got some collective questions to ask you guys, right? And so we're gonna like do rapid fire. Cool? Or we can do like Hollywood Squares, where we're like, whoa, wait, what? You know? So first question to ask you guys, anybody can take it, but the question is, what do you think about like how does your culture or your connection to culture in general, how does that affect your DNA, or does it affect your DNA? Is there a connection to health and culture?
I definitely think there is a connection to health and culture. There's passed down in our genes is a lot of information with the famine or, you know, whatever our ancestors experience in their life that has passed down in our genes, and what I call methylation patterns. And so you see it in people with the Holocaust. It affects their genes and they have higher rates of cancer. And you see it in people who are, you know, Native American descent, like they're used to not having so much food, all different kinds of food to eat. So they're used to fasting. And when you give people unlimited supplies of food, it like literally, you know, causes chronic disease. So I definitely think that genetics plays a role in how we should eat and our, you know, predispositions to things like cancer. But I think 99% of cancer is environmental.
What about
and
you
even
guys?
Looking at it, I was going to say, even if you're looking at it from a psychological standpoint, like intergenerational trauma, the stories that are passed down and the patterns, the ways of thinking, and how that affects us and our mental health, and affects the way our belief system, and what we believe about ourselves and the world, and how we operate. And then of course, you know, how we were talking about earlier, how your thoughts really affect your physiology. So definitely has an impact on your health.
And then I think I am not an expert on this, but Bruce Lipton talks about the founder, the sort of discoverer of epigenetics, talks about how the genes that express themselves on any given day can actually be affected by your environment, which means that they can also be affected by your thinking, so that you can actually upregulate and downregulate genes by meditating. And therefore, it's all kind of in that same space as neuroplasticity, where a lot more can be changed than we thought in the past.
Yes. That's interesting. For me, I feel like it's one of those interesting things where, like, I can only speak personally. Growing up, I kind of disassociated myself from being Indian, you know, and I was kind of embarrassed about it because I was the only Indian kid in my schools, and I was pretty unhealthy. Like, even like I was not very, you know, in tune with my body and my mind. And later on in my late 20s, I started connecting with being Indian, and I noticed I started sleeping better. I started thinking faster. I started being able to solve problems faster. I needed less types of food, like sugary kind of foods, to stay energetic, which was interesting, you know, and it took me being connected to my culture, really made a big difference for me. Okay, so next question is, you know, what would be the ideal, what's the ideal health system, health environment that we could be in 5 years from now?
That's a hard one. Anything out in nature.
You got to use your imagination.
Anything more out in nature, anything that we're connected more with the outdoors. I think that would be a start. So like you mentioned, gardening more, doing outdoor, you know, doing exercising outside, yoga, meditation. I've been actually exercising outdoors a lot now since all the gyms are closed, which is really cool. And again, you know, taking this time looking at the positives of whatever's going on. So that's been great.
Anyone else?
I think that we should be living in nature, but, you know, high density housing is very unhealthy for us. So we should try to, and I'm not saying like everyone leave the cities, but I feel like we need to have more space to garden, and also have areas where we can congregate and have community, and not just be separate. And I think that hopefully that is a possibility next year. But I mean, I think, you know, isolation is dangerous, but also, you know, we can't, like, it's not sustainable to live in high rises. We need to live, you know, in nature, out in the rural areas as well. Like, you know, that's my dream, is to have like a giant tree house in an island in the middle of the Pacific. Who knows where it is? Maybe go to Bali and then have like like a conscious community where we can collaborate. That would be fun.
Carolyn, I just want one branch. I just want one branch. That's it. I can like just hang like a little hut off of the branch. That's all I need. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to be a banyan tree because it's big enough. It'll just be a giant tree. Okay, let's do it.
Big time, big time. And you know, you're talking about like leaving that. When you were talking about having people leave the high rises, right? I thought about like, what could you do with that? Like, you know, it would be very disastrous and ecologically not proper to like just destroy it and like let it just rubble, throw away the rubble, whatever. I was like, you know what'd be cool? Turning all these high rises into beehives.
Yeah, exactly.
Beehives, and they could like just proliferate everywhere wherever they're set up. It's like then we have like flowers and plants and trees everywhere.
Yeah, we could just put gardens. We can put gardens, vertical gardens on the high rises.
There you go. The bees go in. I'm down with that. What about you, Ted?
Well, I think when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So for me, it's circle. It's if people use circle the way they use meditation, that would be for me the way to create to create health.
You're not talking about Circle K, are you?
Circle K.
What are you talking about? Oh, circling.
Sitting in circle in the restorative justice approach to that we use for the men's circle. I think that I think it's a great way to create health. And so I'd love to see that proliferate.
Oh, I can see it. Can you imagine like if our like leaders met in circle, like our political like
I mean, I honestly don't think any meeting can start without passing the talking piece around the room at least once, so that every voice has an opportunity.
Yes, actually, I would like to open that up. That since you brought that up, what a great moment. I would like to unmute everybody, unmute all. And who else has any thoughts about like any visions for the next 5 years? Do you guys see? Because you know, my belief, and let me just share really quick. My opinion is that in order for something to happen, we have to see it first. You know, and it, like if we're always worried or we see the worst of things, that thing will continue to proliferate. And until we think of something, we literally see something different, we can't even work towards it. You know, it's very challenging to work towards it. So anybody out there have any thoughts? Annalisa?
Hi there. Yes, I have a vision. Bridges that unites all over the world. We'll build these long bridges all over the world. That's mine.
I like those bridges because you can do that thing where you hang glide off of it. Like,
yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I just want to say Annalisa is also a psychologist. She works with me in the forensic mental health system.
And I am from Europe.
Where from? What place?
Italy, Rome.
Italy. We got another Italian here too. Mick. Hi, Mick.
Yeah, my father was from Milano.
Okay, bene.
Yeah.
Bravo.
I like bridges personally because I feel I'm like a human bridge for the East and the West. You know, I've grown up in the West, and I've like also love my Eastern background, but like I notice I'm constantly being a bridge. Like can't help it. Any other people? 5-year vision for health?
I think.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead,
Jeff.
I think vegetarianism is very interesting. Maybe it was about 5 years ago that I became vegetarian, and so of course once you do something yourself, you tend to see it around you a lot more. But it really does seem to be growing to me, and so I was wondering if anybody online here knows how many lives would be saved if red meat was simply illegal. Like right now, it's illegal for me to go outside and just walk around without my mask, right? Because we're saving lives by doing that. How many lives would be saved if red meat was illegal? And honestly, does anybody know that? I don't know. Just
That is awesome.
You should know that. We all should know that.
Right.
I mean, what kind of disease we're talking about? Cardiovascular disease, right? There's, you know, hypertension. There's so many diseases that comes around with eating too much red meat.
And the impact on the environment, you know, the pollution and all of that. You know, I mean, I imagine millions of lives would be saved. I don't have a number, but I'm pretty sure the impact would be pretty significant.
Not to mention the creatures in the first place, but anyway. So I see that continuing to spread. Yeah. I don't see it sustainable for humanity any other way. So it's eventually going to happen. I don't know if it's in 5 years. 5 years ago, I predicted 10. So we'll see.
All right. We'll see. I mean, there are places already making the moves, you know? Making the moves. Nihal, were you going to say something?
Thank you. Just sharing my vision. I really see the conversation about cultural trauma being put into the mainstream, that it's that how we define ourselves as survivors in so many ways becomes a part of our identity. It becomes a source of strength and not something that's swept under the rug. It becomes a forefront in the medical industry. And I see there's a lot of potential there for a culture of healing. Also talk about the immune system.
That's huge. Thank you. That's beautiful. I can see that. I can see like a lot of music being played. A lot of good food, and a lot of good music with that food.
Yeah.
Michelle, you want to chime in? Do you have a vision? Do you want to share? Michelle.
Hey, Indy. I've been having some issues with technology for some reason. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we all do. Don't worry. It's okay if you sound like a robot. We're all robots.
Oh, God. Great. Good to see you. Gosh, my vision is so much encompasses what I've heard tonight. And for the last couple hours, I feel like what everybody has said in so many ways really resonates with me. It's been a bit of a road on so many people's lives, what we've all been through. And you know, I do feel like I'm hoping that what we're up against with this huge polarization in the world, I'm really hoping that this starts to bridge, and I'm taking someone else's words, and brings us together in a way that we haven't been. And I think with, you know, the efforts that everybody on this conference tonight and your efforts, I think we keep continuing this, we're going to set a vibration into motion. And I think that we just need to keep it going. We need to keep the momentum.
Yeah, love that. Thank you, Michelle. Amazing. Thanks for confirming that. And where are you calling from?
I'm currently in Ohio. I live in Chicago, but you and I connected through Boz a couple months ago. I came back to Ohio to take care of my mom during this COVID craziness, you know, which really shouldn't be as crazy as it is. And she's a natural healer and holistic researcher. So I came back just to spend some time with her and to really try to absorb as much as I could from her during this time.
Beautiful. It's a good time to reconnect with our parents and family members. It's a beautiful time.
It's so true. So true.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And really quick, Jeff, where are you from? Tuning in from too. I want to just acknowledge you where you're at.
Los Angeles, downtown.
Los Angeles. With the family. Very nice. We got another person down here. I see Mr. Adam. It looks like he's in the Himalayas. What's your vision for 5 years for the health? Oh wait, we can't hear you. Wait, hold on. Unmute. Wait, still unmute.
Can't hear me now?
Oh. Yeah, we can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, cool. I I just wanted to really acknowledge Ted and thank him for his words. And I'd love to hear more about the circle and his work at Stanford and the Peace Innovation Project, I think it's called. And I actually had a question for him regarding your question about what he would do in certain circumstances that you were bringing up in a red environment, in a quote unquote potential conflict, how to bring in that sense of what the other person has been through and what they've gone through in a moment when they're saying something disrespectful or being violent or that kind of thing. But to answer your question right now, I think meditation and self-introspection and really looking at our subconscious, kind of piggybacking what Ted was mentioning. That's my view for health, because we have the power to heal. We have so much power inside of us to understand what's really going on, let alone to actually fix and heal ourselves and many things. So I truly believe in humanity and our ability. So the only way that I know of to cultivate that is to turn off the senses and understand what's really going on.
That's awesome. Ted, do you want to field that question too?
Sure. Can you ask it one more time?
Oh, so I don't know what exactly Cosmic O'Brien's experience was in the red state, but I can think of a million. We've all seen a million movies, we don't like your kind around here. So, type thing. How do you call upon, what do you do in that situation, basically?
Oh, okay. I mean, the truth is I don't find myself in the situation enough. Like I'm living in Half Moon Bay. It's a small town near San Francisco, near Palo Alto. And the other day I saw someone wearing a MAGA hat and I was like, what? I was so thrown off. And so I didn't actually get a chance to do anything about it, like to actually engage, because it wasn't the right situation. But I think the answer at some level would be, and this is hard to do obviously in the moment, especially if you're triggered. I think if you find yourself triggered and that you're sort of, you don't always know this, but you're in your amygdala and not in your prefrontal cortex, you're in your fight or flight, don't do anything. That's a bad time to do anything, because it's not going to be, it's not going to work out well. You're going to be reacting in a time which is not, a safe place to do something. So then hopefully 2 days later, you'll be in a circle and you'll have a chance to speak your upset and, pull your shadow and that sort of thing. But if you are still in your prefrontal cortex and you still can see, opportunity and paradox, then I think the answer might be something like trying to understand what it is that is triggering you. What is it about what they've said that's really making you angry? And how is that inside you? How are they around, how are they just a projection, not just, but how are they a projection of something inside you? Or another way to think about it is, why are they showing up in your movie that you're directing anyway? Because it seems to me to be a powerful way to see our lives, that everything that happens because we chose it to happen to learn something. And so you can thank the person wearing the MAGA hat for being the great lesson that you've cast them to be. Now you have to try to figure out what the lesson is, which is not easy, and certainly not easy in the moment. Something like that. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. For me, for example, I would often see it as wanting to, or I would say that for me, it's encouraged my experiences in this kind of thing, and it encouraged me to want to teach, to want to share, because my reaction is usually ignorance, that these people, just haven't had access to see people that are different from them. And so my feeling is how can, whenever I'm doing, wherever I am, traveling, working with kids, sharing things, being a bridge in different ways, how can I show that there are lots of ways to be, whether it's sexuality, whether it's colors of skin, whether it's, there's things that some people just haven't, been exposed to in a positive way, other than what they've seen on the media and other than just negative examples that they've grown up with, and just ignorance, just racism, just uneducation, this kind of thing. And that has encouraged me to want to be, doing all these kinds of things that we're all doing. So, I don't know if that's just, that was my feeling, but there's still a thing that is difficult in the moment. And so that's kind of, I think, what I'm still trying to,
and if I might interject, and I might have some perspective there, as personally speaking, I think it makes such a big difference to feel like I am coming from a place that I feel like I'm not trying to do anything. Like when I'm this, like I think Ted said it pretty well. Like when I'm using my prefrontal cortex, I'm in a state of play. I'm in a state of curiosity. I'm in a state of flow, right? Then it almost feels like there aren't any repercussions then, right? So even if something does happen that's troubling, it's not troubling to you because you're not using that part of your brain. You're like, oh, you're gonna solve the problem. That's a trouble. So it's really just you're like hijacking any sort of consequence that you don't want, because everything almost becomes what you actually are creating.
Mm-hmm. I think the moment that you think they're wrong is the moment you're not ready to be teaching anything, and is the moment that you need the lesson. If you think they're wrong, because if you try to teach someone when you think they're wrong, then you're going to then you're kind of in a space of propaganda. You're coming at them at the same frequency, even if it's a different content. You're coming at them with the same frequency as you're concerned they're at.
Right.
So another way to say that would be like, I was thinking about this with MSNBC and Fox News. I can turn on MSNBC and be like, yeah, I totally agree. Like Rachel Maddow makes so much sense. She's so smart and blah, blah, blah. And then I go over to Fox News and I'm like, oh, they're crazy. What the fuck are they thinking? Blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, no, they're both coming in at a very low frequency. It's the same frequency. It's anger. And it doesn't matter which anger. One could be right and one could be wrong, but both are not helpful. So the question is not, are they right? Or you right? Are they wrong? Are you wrong? It's how can we all rise in frequency? And if you look up David Hawkins, his frequency chart, he actually goes through it in detail and tells you where, like for example, that courage is not a high frequency, even though we think of it as a high frequency. Or bravery is not a high frequency, whereas like peace is a high frequency. And it kind of shifts the way you think about the quality versus the quantity of the interaction you're having. Yeah, there it is. That to me, that this
makes
changed
a lot
my
of
life.
sense. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, this is interesting because, I also think like we are oscillating, we're changing with these things. We're kind of like, we're like sharing these frequencies with each other. There's all this really cool stuff happening all the time, and when we play music or we do certain things that are not even like using words, right? Like sounds that we can make, they can elucidate certain feelings, certain vibrations as well.
You might even say that in the situation where you feel like you need to teach, it's like, what can you learn from them? How can they be your teacher at that moment? Or even how can you find a way, like what Indy does so well is like, how can you find a way to play? To like come back to beginner's mind. I can't do that. I'm just bad at it. But Indy's like, he'll pull out a flute and like everybody can get on board with music. And so then all of a sudden you're all connected. And then you don't have to think about the fact that you liked Trump and he didn't like Trump and all of that nonsense, which is really all about something that probably doesn't have a lot to do with your humanity in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I like to do to help people kind of understand where adults that look like adults may be in their mind or consciousness is really see everybody like a child, right? And everyone who's a child, whenever they are acting out of not what you're used to, it's just like children on the playground. They come from wherever they come from. No one's taught them anything. They're just kind of acting out, right? And so a lot of people who, I live in a red state now, but I came from California and I live in Houston now. And it was definitely something that I was kind of battling because I lived in LA for so long and I left Houston because at the time it was very red. It's gotten blue a little bit more, but even then that doesn't say it's not blue or red. It's really about who lives here. And since the conversation of me getting to know people that lived here, there's no red or blue. There literally isn't a red or blue. It's just they're living the same experience, but maybe what they've experienced is very different from what I've experienced when I went to a place where in LA, it's very transient. I see people from all over the world coming through LA, when in Houston, they don't. So now that there's a lot more diversity in Houston, that's because the world has changed, at least in Houston, right? So I'm not saying every red place that is a little bit more ignorant to cultures, we are the ones that are going to change their stereotype of these cultures, right? And that's why when I go in, it's, whatever stereotype they have in their mind of what they believe, I represent or, somebody of me represents, I have an opportunity to break that, right? And so the idea of play is, how can I be someone that can break some stereotypes so when they walk away, they don't think of anything physically about me, but could I have left some wisdom, or can I pick up some wisdom from them to understand why they think this way, Right. So, I learned so much from people who stereotype us, because then I learned where they come from in their culture. And that helped me through finding the balance of the American culture versus the Asian culture, and finding peace between that is, you can't say one is worse than the other because you're never recognizing what each of them represent.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. Really good point. Well, I don't want to hold anybody anymore. You guys have been here for 2 hours. It's been an awesome show. How amazing is this? Please, you guys stay in touch, connect with each other. There's all this cool ways. I posted some stuff. Ted, you guys can follow on LinkedIn, Quantum Warrior, the project. There's all kinds of cool stuff. But you guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. How amazing was this? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Can I have a quick go back?
Yes.
A real quick one?
Yeah, please.
I'm thinking more about the vegetarianism thing that I was talking about and making it illegal. I think that would actually be a terrible idea. It's way better to just talk to people about it. If suddenly there was a law that said no more red meat,
yeah,
there would be riots everywhere, right? And it wouldn't actually get anywhere. So just what I found is that people who are asking me about it, the most aggressive are actually just curious, and they're on the edge of considering it themselves. So
nice.
Anyway.
And we got people like Amanda to show up and hold people's hands through it. So works all out. Cool, guys. I love you guys. Take care. Have a good rest of your night. Good weekend. If you know kids or anything, we're doing a cosmic lab on Wednesday with making clay and a sculpture and astrology. Charlie's going to be doing a kids astrology class for kids.
What time?
It's at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Nice.
So
I'll try to bring my kids.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome.
Cool, guys. Take care, everyone. Be well. Make sure you guys look on the chat if there's anything on there that you guys want to save. Ted just posted something too. So, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, guys. I love you. I gotta go to another thing.
Yeah, I do.
Good. Bye.